Arthur Penn released the film Little Big Man in the winter of 1970. The 70s were a new time for different types of movies. Movies were beginning to thrive because, as the Chicago Tribune puts it, they were not as inhibited by censorship, self-imposed, as they were prior to the 60s. The 70s allowed directors to explore various genres and categories of films. Therefore, we were given classics like Jaws, Star Wars, and The Godfather. Amongst these iconic films, the 1970s was the era of the Western films. Westerns were popping up in movie theaters everywhere, and there was actually a big turnout for them. In Looking at Movies, it states that Westerns are a form of modern mythology that offers narrative representations of Americans as rugged, self-sufficient individuals taming a savage wilderness with common sense and direct action. Learning about the life story of this tough American cowboy was appealing to most Americans at the time, especially considering that they had never seen the storyline on a screen before. Westerns generally have the same elements to their plotline. These include violent acts, such as gunfights or massacres, horses or stagecoaches, open landscapes, and a Western hero, aka law enforcement, cowboys, etc., that seeks justice against an outlaw. Little Big Man follows most of these criteria. It has several violent acts. The movie starts out in the aftermath of a massacre, which is the first of many in this film. There are also many gunfights that we witness, especially during his time with the Americans. Horses and traditional Western landscapes are primarily seen throughout the entirety of the film. However, when it comes to the Western hero, Little Big Man's classification as a Western gets iffy. The main character, Jack, floats through life bouncing between the cowboys and the human beings. He can't really decide on a side to choose, so he tends to pick the one that would best suit him at the time. This is demonstrated when he fights alongside the human beings, and just as he is about to die, is recognized as a white man. Therefore, he switches sides to fight along with the general and the other cowboys. In the evolution of the Western genre resulting from social changes in the USA, they categorize Little Big Man as an anti-Western. This is because the film demonstrates all the characteristics of a Western film. However, it also balances both points of view of the classic cowboys versus Indian fight. That same article also states that, quote, Penn always portrays the minority group, the others, in a positive way, end quote. This act shatters the stereotypes behind the Western hero, thus making Little Big Man so impactful to the film society. In other Western films, such as The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the hero is a parent. The cowboy is the superior being in all the West, and the director does a deliberate job to ensure that you know who the good and the bad guy is. In The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, it's so obvious it's in the title and flashes on the screen when that character is introduced. However, Arthur Penn wanted his stories to be authentic, even down to the way they were filmed. He said once, quote, I don't do storyboards. I prefer to be open to what the actors do, how they interact to the given situation, end quote. He applied this same mindset to his narrative. He didn't want to portray the cowboys as good and wholesome heroes because he knew that that's not how the story went. He plastered the reality of their bloody massacres onto the big screen instead of shying away from the truth. That's why Little Big Man was so impactful to the quality of movies in the 1970s. It's one of the only Westerns to show the true reality behind the days of the Wild West.